Hi, y'all. Happy St. Pat's. I'm wearing my little bandana because we're about to visit the rowdiest boys in bear country.
Just kidding. I'm scared.
Down now, boys. Then join us bears and suck up some air in the great outdoors.
So I know in my video that I did about Disney ride music, I covered the Country Bear Jamboree and how I think that the country bears have weird, distorted faces that make them look like scary internet creepypasta animals. And I got a lot of questions from people who did not know that this was a ride. I feel like some people have just never been on this attraction and they were like, who are these bears? And I was also wondering, they didn't come from a movie as far as I was concerned, and I didn't know if they came from a story, like an old fairy tale or something, so how did these creatures come to be? So I know I said in that other video that these bears were like creepypasta shit, but they were literally born of a curse that killed Walt Disney. They killed Walt Disney. Because think of creepypastas like Smile Dog. What's the general storyline? It's basically you see this cursed image and it starts making you act differently. You start doing things you wouldn't normally do, and then it's like because you saw the image, you die. So now I'm going to read you the real quote from the Wikipedia article about how the country bears were created. One day, Davis, one of the animators, was working on drawings of the country bears in his office. Walt Disney walked in and saw the drawings and laughed because he loved the characters. But on his way out, he turned to Mark Davis and said goodbye, which he was known never to say. That was the last time Davis saw Disney, who died a few days later on December 15th, 1966. So yeah, in all serious, they did not come from anything. They were just created by the animators. But the reason they were originally designed is because Walt Disney had this idea for a ski lodge resort. And there was going to be some sort of little dinner show, a little thing that you could watch, and that was going to be the Country Bear Jamboree. But since Disney died, this actually weirdly timed death, the ski lodge did not come to fruition, but they ended up picking up the country bears and incorporating them into the Country Bear Jamboree, which came first at Disney World and then at Disneyland and Tokyo Disneyland. So that's how they came about. There was no story or anything. It was just like, let's have a fun bear show. So then that begs the question, who are they? So now, gossip time. Let's read the bios of all the country bears and talk about them. First off, we have the little narrator of the show, Henry, who is a welcoming and friendly brown bear. Dare I say it, he looks normal and kind of cute. I'm gonna take a stand here and say that he's my favorite because he introduces the band, the Five Bear Rugs, which again, I didn't understand that pun until I actually said it out loud. But even then, is it a pun? I get bear rug, but is that supposed to sound like something else? Five Bear Rugs. But I actually like the song they sing. It's the Bear Band Serenade.
Well, we're about to play now, and a good old King G. Singing 17, friend bear named Tennessee.
Now here's where I don't know if this was just like the 70s or if this was the writers trying to sneak in jokes for the parents or just the animators getting way too into it, but apparently it's heavily implied that Henry has a backstage romance with Teddy Bear. She's this bougie bear that comes in through the ceiling and wears a big hat. Here's Trixie. She's the only other female bear, at least in the main cast, and she's singing the beautiful song, Tears Will Be the Chaser for Your Wine.
And tears will be the chaser for your wine.
Canonically, she also has a thing for Henry, which is just confirming my opinion that he's the only one that looks normal. What are you gonna do, ladies? The other men in your life are freaky as F, And they know it too, because, they come together to sing the very kid-friendly song, "All the boys who turn me on, turn me down." Now there's also Liver Lips McGrowell, and he's been described as perhaps the funniest looking bear, which you know what that means. It means he's probably the most terrifying. But not far from Wendell, a hyperactive golden brown bear. Now, Wendell may not have the romantic drama that the other bears have, but he does seem to have a history of other trauma as he sings the song, "Mama Don't Whip Little Buford." And then, last but not least, Big Al, the fan favorite who I've already covered in another video, but he's most famous for singing about blood. So the bears were part of the show, and that's all that they were. They were just a fun Disney attraction. It was an e-ticket attraction for a while, super popular. The first time I actually heard of the Country Bears was because the people, like in the costumes, did a performance of one of their songs called The Great Outdoors on the Disneyland Fun Sing-Along Songs tape. I don't know if anyone else remembers this. But then apparently in the early 2000s, Disney started to realize that their ride characters and their ride stories were really intriguing and were part of the reason people love Disneyland, and they were trying to monetize them further. So they started doing ride movies. And the first big one that I feel like most of us remember is Pirates, but there was this made-for-TV movie about the Tower of Terror. There was apparently one based on Mission Space that I don't remember at all existing. But then for the third ride-to-movie adaptation, Disney figured they could cash in on one of their most beloved attractions and make the Country Bears. So this happened. I'm actually really surprised that I have not seen or heard of this movie before. Apparently, it's very famous for being one of Disney's biggest flops. It only made back half of its budget at the box office. To be fair, the bears in the movie are not as freaky. There are no distended faces or bulging eyes or anything like that. They just kind of look like anthropomorphic bears, but that's still a little weird because they kind of have human eyes. It's like that dog with the face where he looks like he's human. Trigger warning. But I do like that they sort of have this 90s puppetry feel. It's kind of like Never-Ending Story, and they are played by real puppeteers. It's actually people working with them. It's not CGI, so they're not falling into the Jurassic World trap. So I don't really know what I would have expected this movie to be, but what it is the story of a bear boy, an adopted bear living in a human household who starts to feel different and wonders if he's adopted. So he ends up running away and then finding the old famous rock group, the Country Bears. On IMDb, this is actually referred to as a satire of Behind the Music. It's him reinstating this band. But the really weird thing is, maybe this is what the movie got wrong. In the parks, the whole charm of the Country Bears is that they're singing this old-timey country music. It's these country vibes that you don't hear anymore, so it's kind of charming when it's at a park, even though you wouldn't really listen to it. But in the movie, they make them this 90s rock, stadium rock. Either that, or when they're being reunited, they're sort of cool hip hop.
Hey, come on, sing it, come on!
When your grip keeps slipping and your touch is gone.
It's just so Disney Channel. But it's just so funny because this movie was banked on as being this huge success. And they got, Christopher Walken is in it. He's one of the main characters, not a bear. It's just Christopher Walken. He's a villain. And then there are guest appearances by Willie Nelson, Elton John, Queen Latifah, and also Wyclef Jean. How 2000s is that? And did you see the tagline? It's so depressing. It's "They're legends. Barely. Like, I get that you wanted to make another bear pun, but what that's literally saying is like, oh, we're almost legends. Like, I think a lot of people know about the Country Bear Jamboree, but, maybe not. Barely. Anyway, I'm super intrigued by this movie. This may be a part one of two where I actually go more in depth because I have only watched scenes from the movie right now. I haven't seen the whole thing. But the question is, how has this ride stood the test of time? How have these really creepy characters stood the test of time? It's really strange because this ride has spread across the world. It's managed to stay all these years. I mean, in a way, I kind of get it because even though they ultimately caused his demise, they were one of the last animatronics that Walt Disney actually commissioned himself. So I bet that that's sentimental. I feel like there may be a weird anti-PC thing because apparently the ride did get remodeled somewhat recently, and people were really scared that they were going to get rid of the songs like Turn Me On, Whip Little Buford, and make it more family friendly. There was a New York Times article about the remodel, and one of the quotes was, "It's outdated, but it's like stepping back into my childhood." The fans ended up being happy with it because apparently they think Teddy Bear has a great sparkly new hat and parasol. So if it's good enough for Teddy Bear, it's good enough for me. Side note part two, there is Country Bear fan fiction. It looks like a lot of it is based off of the movie. That little boy character, his name is Barry Barrington. And there are stories about like the girl version of Barry Barrington. Now Barry Barrington has a sister or something like that. And there's a lot of names that I think are just the characters in the movie. The movie plays with the relationships a little bit more. Apparently now Trixie is with Zeb. I don't know, Tennessee, one of the other bears that I didn't even get to. There are a lot. There are actually a lot of bears. Yes, there are 17 bears in total. So that's that. That's where it all came from. It's just this original ride that sort of became a cult classic because of all these characters that have weird backstories, and it's tried to move into media, but it has not been able to stand the test of time in that regard. But I don't think they're ever going to get rid of it at the parks either. So that's just what Country Bear Jamboree is. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know if I should go more in depth into the Country Bears movie or other weird Disney rides, or just, stick to the dingo pictures, because that's probably coming up next otherwise.